This is Speaking of Speaking. Quick tips and tools to take you from stage fright to spotlight. This podcast gives you an inside look from the world of public speaking and the speaking secrets you need to be bold from the stage, no matter what business you're in. The host of Speaking, Carl Richards.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, it's another edition of the Speaking of Speaking podcast, and we're continuing our three-part series of Speaking of Your Podcast. What do you need to start? Other than the decision that you're going to start a podcast, what are some of the pieces of equipment that you need, or what are some things that you need to consider? And by the way, it is quite an extensive list, 10 things on the list to be exact. So we're going to post the list in the show notes. We're going to quickly talk about all of these things here, but these are things that you need to get started. And by the way, you don't need to spend a ton of money on these things. You can definitely invest. If you'd like to invest, for example, in a greater microphone, one that's of a higher quality, you don't have to, but you definitely will have a better quality product if you do that. So here's some of the things that you need to launch your podcast. So number one, you need a computer. Now, a lot of people are doing podcasts now using their devices, using either their iPads or their smartphones. I still prefer the old-fashioned way of having the editing software open, only because you're going to get a better quality all the way around. So number one is you need a computer. Number two is you need a microphone. Now, that microphone can be earbuds. It can also be a headset. If you want to spend a couple of dollars and get like a Blue Yeti or a Rode or any kind of microphone that, for example, there are tons of them on Amazon. You have lots of choices there, but you want something to record. You need something to record into other than just your computer audio. Number three is you need recording and editing software. Now, I use Audacity, but in the past I have used Cool Edit, which ended up becoming Adobe Audition. So if you have the Adobe suite, you can use that for sure. Some people will use GarageBand as well. If you're a Mac user, you might have access to that on your computer. As long as you have some type of recording and editing software, it doesn't matter what you use, as long as you have something. Audacity, what I like about it is it's free. It's open source, and it doesn't cost you anything to use it. Number four is you need artwork. Now, you might be wondering, why do I need artwork? It's not a gallery, it's a podcast. But you're right. You need something, though, just like you have branding and colors and pictures all over your website and on your social media pages as well. You need artwork that is the right dimensions and the right popping of color and content for your podcast artwork as well. And that's something that we help people with all the time. Number five is theme music. Now, you can get theme music from many different sources. You can get it from a free source. You can also get it from an open source, or you can also get it from a source that is somebody that you know, for example, that maybe does music. We have a source that we go to all the time. His name is Nathan Simon, and he does amazing music. I can certainly give you a hookup with Nathan, if you're looking for music, but you need it to make sure that you have some kind of sound that identifies with your podcast. Number six is you want an intro. Now, some people do their own podcast intros, but one of the things that I do is I offer to do people's intros and extras for them. And it's that piece that says, welcome to the such and such podcast. And at the end, it's the extra, which is number six, by the way. You've been listening to this podcast. Number seven is a host site. Now, a host site is something like Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout is number one in the world as far as host sites go, but there are others, including Podbean. There are many others out there that you can use. What I like about Buzzsprout is, and there's a reason why it's number one, they have amazing customer service. Okay, so I love them for that. I've had people who have had multiple issues because let's face it, it's technology, and sometimes we just don't understand how everything works. So they've reached out to Buzzsprout and they've gotten an answer from Buzzsprout, usually in a very short period of time. So number seven is a host site. You also need a playback site. So where is it playing to? And you can have multiples of these, by the way. So you can have your podcast featured on Apple Podcasts. It can be featured on Google. It can be featured on Stitcher. It can be featured on Spotify, and there are a host of others as well. And it's usually your hosting site that will allow you to connect to those various playback sites. Number 9 is you need a schedule. How often are you going to be pumping your podcast out? Is it daily? Is it weekly? If it's daily, that's very ambitious. Is it weekly? Is it every other week? Is it once a month? Whatever it is, make sure you have that schedule and you are consistent with it. And number 10 is marketing. This is where some people get bogged down because we really want people to listen to our podcast, and you can't just go on the premise of, if I build it, they will listen. You have to let them know what to listen to and when. So make sure that if you are creating a new episode, that you let people know that you have a new episode, and you can share through your social channels, in your email lists, you can share it in your blog posts, all of those ways, which are organic ways to market your podcast. We're going to put that complete list, by the way, in the show notes. You'll be able to see it there. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. As I said, the program that I run, it's 60 days to launch. We're on a bit of a sabbatical right now. However, the next installment of it will be starting in the next couple of months. We also have the Podcast Launch Made Simple Workshop Week, and it'll be starting in the next couple of months as well. That's an opportunity for you to do a deeper dive, and those notes will be made available for you in the show notes as well. Next time, we'll be talking about part 3, speaking of your podcast, building your audience through marketing. Until next time, it's Carl Richards. Get out there and own the platform.
Thanks for listening to the Speaking of Speaking podcast. Fired up about something you heard today? Want to learn more? Be sure to visit carlspeaks.ca. And don't forget to follow Carl on Twitter @CarlRichards72 or join the Facebook group Speaking of Speaking.